Quick sound check. Can everybody hear us loud and clear? What's going on, Coach Paul?
Hey, Coach Jay, can you hear me? I hope everyone is doing well. Welcome at the buzzer.
Sounds good to me. Welcome everyone to At the Buzzer, our market recap. If this is your first time here, I'm Coach Jay. That is Coach Paul. The goal of this segment is to review what happens in the markets for the day. We may talk about some markets that you have not traded before, but we believe our goal as traders is to identify opportunities, see how we could have taken advantage of those opportunities while managing our risk. If this is our first time meeting, I am Coach Jay. Been a Topstep Performance Coach for a little over a year now. Been trading for the past 12, in the futures markets for the past 5, and that is Coach Paul. Coach Paul, go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hey, I'm Coach Paul. I've been involved in the futures industry for 4 decades. I've been with Topstep for about almost a year and a half now as a performance coach. I'm here to help, hopefully, with some knowledge and wisdom of trading, focusing on risk management. And Coach Jay, let's begin.
Let us begin. As far as news goes today, we know we had Fed speakers. We had Fed speakers pretty much all week, and we're going to continue to see them. We had FOMC minutes, which, not any new rate decisions, but talk about the last meeting. I did see as well on Topstep TV today, Jack did mention that for the next FOMC meeting that we have come up, there is a 16% probability currently of no rate cut at all. We know that the last cut that the Fed made was 50 basis points. There was potential talks about another 25 basis point cut, but with some of the data that has come out, potentially no cut for the next FOMC meeting, which would be the last one for the year. Outside of that, not too much on the news. We do have CPI and PPI coming out tomorrow and Friday. CPI first, then PPI afterwards, and we know those are going to be big market moving events potentially. So the market still moving outside of that. We can see it up here, market news. The S&Ps made the 44th record close for the year this year. A lot of air horns, where the S&Ps are very strong. The NASDAQ has some room to catch up, but S&P's very strong currently.
Well, good that you mentioned the CPI. That seems to be the one that's creating the most volatility. So I'm going to put it out there right now. If you're trading, defend yourself. Don't trade in front of that number, and preserve your capital. That's the one that seems, I don't know, it was the one that was exploded last month, wasn't it?
It was.
So
yes, it was.
Advice is don't trade in front of it.
I would agree with you there, Coach. And Sean C, that's correct. CPI tomorrow, which is Thursday. PPI on Friday. And yeah, this is Financial Juice built into Topstep X. If you guys have not seen this, right in the Trader Hub on the left side, you can click here. This news is piped in straight from Financial Juice, so you don't have to go over there to look at it unless you use Financial Juice Pro or something like that. But a lot of the information that we talk about here, right here, you got all the numbers that are out. Really nice feature. Again, Topstep X is amazing. Kind of all of the things that we might be looking for built into one platform. And Electrodelic says prayers with Florida. 100% prayers for any of our traders in Florida, in the Southeast, and just all over the world. Just pray for peace, like Hogue says all the time. But we know that Hurricane Milton is potentially making landfall in Florida very soon. So prayers out to everyone who's there for your safety.
Yes.
I locked myself out today, which I'm very happy about. Go ahead, Coach.
Our thoughts. Our thoughts are with our Florida traders and in general the Florida population. Wishing you the best.
Absolutely.
So
Let's get into these markets.
Next is
The way we start every call is with the top percentage movers on the day. To the downside, we have copper down 1.09%, lean hogs down 1.91%, and nat gas, our biggest percentage mover, to the downside at 3.29%. To the upside, we have the NASDAQ, second day in a row, up here in the top three, up 0.62%. The Dow up 0.97%, and wheat futures, our biggest percentage mover, to the upside, 1.01%. To round out our top four, we have the S&Ps just outside of the top three at 0.55%. Crude oil down 0.46%, and gold down 0.36%. Uh, let's go over to the equities. I'm looking at the ES. It's the one that made a new all-time high today. Kind of an anticlimactic all-time high. It just kind of like slow walk in the park up to up to a new level, which is fine, right? It wasn't uh, weren't much theatrics involved. Just kind of said, hey, you know what? Markets are meant to go up, and when you keep going up, you make all-time highs.
and it's what the stocks are designed to do. Uh, it was this, like you hit it on the head, anticlimactic, um, and I call that what the stocks do. If there's no selling and no urgency, they're naturally going to drift higher. It's an
Yep.
ownership market. So well, let's begin. A nice green uh, start last night, and that zone opening,
Yep. So here
and
we
that's
have
off the
the
30-minute chart.
correct 30-minute opening range here. Coach, if I have your moving averages up, this is a 30-minute chart here. The white line is the 200 moving average, purple is the 50, and then this yellow. Let's not have two yellow lines because that could cause a lot of confusion. So I'm going to change my view up to orange. Orange is too close to yellow. Let's make it purple. That works. I already have a purple.
Yeah.
Yellow line is the 20 moving average on the 30-minute. We're above the 200 moving average, the 50 and the 20 above those as well, which tell us that the market is in an uptrend. Uh, to open the session last night, we did have a little bit of a sell-off right down into this 50 moving average. And I'm going to hand it over to you from there, Coach, because I know you took a trade from there.
Yeah. Of the 50 bar moving average, I had a bid and overnight. In the micros, I was short the S&P. I wanted to take half off that 50 moving average, and lo and behold, and on 40 years, this might be the fifth time I've bought the low print. um,
Times you get lucky. When you're good,
Literally
you're
the
lucky.
low print, uh, which scared the hell out of me all day because I turned and got long. I'm like, there's a 99% chance that it's not going to stay the low of the day. I was pleasantly surprised, and I traded my process. But it was very interesting. Starting last night, we frame out that first half an hour, and we put a VWAP, and we had a distribution lower. I mean, it was classic. Um, Found no buyers. Um, Interestingly enough, London was calling. What time was that low made, Coach?
This is on the London Open pretty much. 57.81 was the low. Yeah, 57.81 was the low on that London Open. Um, and we just bounced from there.
Yeah. I almost want to put a candle in for London. Um, so what we can see, we had Asian trade going lower. Europe opened up London time. We make the low, and what do? An hour later, we get over VWAP from the opening in Asia, and off we went. Um, that I was not expecting that, but my bias was still to be long. Um, that was a classic move last night. Um, Wish it would do that every night, but I got lucky. I bought a low tick in the micros. Um, then we rally through Europe. Now we have to see what happens in New York. So let's frame out New York's opening.
One thing I want to check out real quick is whatever this was. Remember yesterday we had this, there was news. There was a headline yesterday. I actually don't even recall what it was at this point, but it was just this volume cluster in the middle of the day. This is 12 p.m. Central Time. Uh,
Hmm.
that area is exactly where we checked back down to. So again, the market respecting revisiting volume. Not sure exactly what the headline was. Someone in chat definitely remembers. Um, but we checked it in London, held it, and rallied from there. So going to the New York session open now. Here is the first 3 minutes of, and it overlaps. I'm going to leave it there actually. It overlaps a lot with the first 30-minute range, right? This initial green rectangle we have is the first 30-minute range. And then this one that I just added here, and we'll change the color so we can actually see it. We'll make that blue. That's the New York session opening range. I'm gonna get back to this at some point later on at a different time. But when we see overlap in these opens, uh, it's pretty cool to watch. But there you go, Coach. We have the 3 minute opening range. VWAP leaves fairly early in the S&Ps, and just a really nice rally day.
Yes. Yeah, that was I mean, that was a smooth, let's put it was a smooth handoff. So in going around the globe, I've worked 24-hour desks in the business for many years, different time frames. And that is, it's called handing off the deck. So whatever business goes to the next time zone, basically every 6 hours. Um, so measuring these, I mean, we've found quite a non-random time frames. Um, I love it. So this one is 3 minute. Let's go through that. Um,
As Royal points out that we had, this quick wick on the 3 minute right into the full session VWAP and pretty much set the lows
yeah, we
for
did.
if you were only trading New York.
And it was originally, I mean, it looked like it was going to go down, and it was on volume, but it is a classic, that big volume on the seller, the first selling. All right. And you've pointed this out many times. What did they get for it?
VWAP. They got
They
VWAP.
got VWAP.
They
All
got
right.
rejected at VWAP. 58. So there was a lot going on there. Now that I'm looking at this,
Yeah,
right?
well, isn't it?
5,800, which is a major psych level, right? In order for that to hold, you're going to need to see a big market presence either way, right? Whether it's a seller or a buyer, you're going to need to see somebody step in there and push us away from that level. And who was first to the table were the sellers, right? Where they tried to sell it off under 5,800, got met by that VWAP, all the buying pressure that was there overnight. And that was it. All that selling got absorbed. And that was kind of the story for the day, right? So if you're,
Yeah.
think about it, if
And
you're a
once
seller,
it attached.
go ahead, coach. Go ahead, coach.
Oh, no, you were going, we were thinking alike. I shouldn't interrupt. Keep going with the ball, sir.
So yeah, once you're selling under 5,800, if the market doesn't do what you expect it to do, uh, eventually you become a buyer, and then there's other buyers who we know just love to buy these markets, going to give this momentum to the upside. And it was kind of a slow drift up, right? There wasn't, and we've seen these moves happen before, and I think Nick Vortic and everyone who was on the morning segment, during fast markets was saying, these are the type of markets where you try to short it because it gets to a technical level, and it never really gives you a good reason to. If we look at the pullbacks in the S&Ps, they were 6 points, 3 points, not presenting much to counter trend traders. And it was a slow grind up until it wasn't, right? Then we see volume start to pick up again and accelerate that move. Uh, the first 3 hours of trade were pretty much just straight to the upside, right? If I change this to an hourly chart, I think it's just a very strong bullish candle.
That's a good point. That slow grind, we talked about the frog in boiling water. This one was a frog that wasn't in boiling water. The shorts, it didn't shock you out, and you had to be patient and then kept selling it. This is a day that if you wanted to sell it, you had plenty of opportunity, but you never got the movement in your favor. Um, I love what you talked about that big selling candle. Is this a 3 bar reversal, Coach, off the opening? Because we had
Definitely
that
is.
large volume to the downside, f- followed by a little more selling, but they once we took that high out of that large volume selling, um, it never filled that candle in, and it just kept going. Um, that's a classic J trade, I call it. And and even if we anchor a VWAP to that high volume, that opening candle,
This is this blue one
and I
here.
think you did already. This
Mhm.
is it. What you just said. I mean, uh, all the king's horses and all the king's men couldn't push it lower, right? So great analysis. That's why I love working with your coach. That volume analysis is spot on.
And a lot of times, traders will ask, well, how do I get into this if the trend is going without me? It is difficult, right? I don't want to act like it's not, right? The market's kind of just grinding up. You feel like you should have been in it from the open, and it's not really giving you a great opportunity. Sometimes it's either, go find a different market to trade or wait for a real opportunity. And we could see it. It did give us a really nice one later on in the day where the same thing that happened at the open happened at 12:51 Central Time, where whatever this volume was, again, rejecting right at VWAP, and it's pretty much the same trade that happened at the open. Required a ton of patience, right? A ton of patience. But I know for myself, a lot of my profits today came from trading the Dow and the Russell, because initially I was looking for the move in the S&Ps, and I felt like I missed it, and the Dow and the Russell just presented a cleaner opportunity to me. But then later on in the day, coming back to see the S&Ps potentially, holding this anchored VWAP gives us another nice opportunity. And look at it from this anchor VWAP here. This is 58.19 through the rest of the day. There's another 26 points available here. I know there were some traders in the chat, in the Coach J chat, that said they took this exact trade, and it required a lot of patience, right? It requires a ton of patience, but this is again a perfect example of having a setup. VWAP left the range. We established the range. We don't know that this is going to work. Right? We don't know that any of the trades that we're taking are going to work. Um, but waiting for that pullback, and we also don't get to decide when this happens, right? But we've seen plenty of times where this happens early in the session, where all it requires is you waiting for it. It happens, and then you take the trade from there, establish your risk. But really nice trend day, all-time highs now in the S&Ps, 58.46 half on this contract. And what stops us now?
No, well,
Bad
let's
inflation news,
quickly
maybe.
bring up the daily and yeah. Well, CPI, unless some crazy number comes out, yeah.
Right.
But well, we don't know that now. I mean, that daily that does not looks like it's going to gain steam. And am I surprised? No, I'm not. But I'm in awe of just the power of equities to go up. Just- I never underestimate the power of stocks to go up.
We talked a little bit about this here, this 20 moving average on the daily being somewhat supportive since we gotten back over it. The last couple of days we were in this range, kind of using that 20 moving average as a support, and finally looking like we're starting to break out over this consolidation. And all-time highs on almost every tick if we just keep going in that direction. So really nice move there in the S&Ps. I'm going to switch over to the NASDAQ. We're going to go from the daily chart on the NASDAQ and look at the same situation we've been talking about yesterday. The NASDAQ was about 4.2% off of the all-time high on the close. And today we covered some of that ground. We are now 3.82% off the all-time high, 3.75, close enough. Just under 4% off the all-time high in the NASDAQ. So has some room to play catch up. But we know the way the NASDAQ moves, it could catch up very quickly. Same story here, coach, on the 20 moving average on the daily, using it as a support, starting to break out. The NASDAQ still not in the clear out of this consolidation. We need to get above 2530, I'll call it. And what I'm looking at is so we had the July 11th candle, and we know how impactful July 11th was for all of the markets that we trade. And we have that candle, and then we have the one that kind of, I think this was this the 5% down day? This was one of those huge down days. So I'm
I
looking
believe
at,
that was
so we'll go with the first one, which was July 17th. Right now we're accepting back inside that range. The low of that candle was the low of the day today, 20,203. And the low of today's daily candle was pretty much the low of this. So now we're accepting back inside this imbalance. We haven't traded to 50% of it yet. 50% is right at 20,513. But accepting price in here, we can see we were, deciding whether or not we were going to accept these ranges for a little while. It looks like the market made a decision. So now I'm looking at, do we claim 50% of this and then fill this entire imbalance? And the high of that is 20,827, which that's a 2% move, could very well happen tomorrow. Um,
yeah, and it's playing catch up. It's funny is that the S&P is the leader, or is it the Dow has been the leader? I think. Um, so once
like the leader
again,
today.
it seems to me that equity decision makers who are doing large allocations are picking safety over. I mean, there's the evidence there. You're not going to get fired for buying IBM or Microsoft, but you
On the stocks, you might
you
lose your
might.
job.
Yeah, they always make new highs.
Here's the 30-minute on the Nasdaq. Pretty much the same story as the S&Ps, so we're not going to go over it in too much detail. But very much the same story. Looks identical to the S&P chart. Anchored VWAP from that first 30-minute initially was a decent sell. We came back down to test this 50 moving average. I did not trade overnight. I didn't look for too many trades overnight. Um, but again, the this is just really, really nice market and price action. Uh, Here is the 3-minute opening range. Same exact story. It was choppy to start the morning, but then eventually got its act together, kind of trending up. Really nice trade by Rips uh, during fast markets, where he got into, I think, a 5 contract long right around 20,335 and held through this consolidation. But I really like this trade. Was kind of just hoping, like, hey, I just hope his stops in the right place where he doesn't get stopped out on this, because to me, it looked like he was right about the market direction, and of course he was. And just a really nice trend continuation up. This was an opportunity for shorts to take profit on a counter trend, or for longs to look to get in the flow of the market. Really no follow through on the volume to the downside, maybe just some profit taking. Uh, but again, just a really nice trend up. We didn't trade 20,500, which, if buyers are that convinced, why not trade the whole numbers? But that could happen during tonight's session. Anything on the NASDAQ, coach? You kind of breaking up. Can you say that one more time?
No. Still looks good. The upside. I imagine there'll be some correction tonight, but there's no to me. There's no reason to sell it. For me, it's very bullish. But actually, good traders can find some sells in that. I'm not that good. And it goes back to, can you do it consistently? Can you manage your risk?
Absolutely.
But all in all, stocks are bullish.
Stocks are bullish. We got a question here from Water Fasting Results. If you have a weak green volume bar and green candle is going up, does it mean weak buying or strong sellers? It's a good question. If the volume is weak in the candle, I would just go with weak buying, because strong sellers, in my opinion, we would either need to have. So it could be a strong passive seller, right, where someone just has an order out there on the books. But I don't consider that a strong presence because they're just passively waiting for their orders to get filled, right? We would need a buyer to come in and take that order out. So the way I'm looking at that is weak buyers, right? Where there's a lot of orders sitting out there, the buying is starting to slow down. And the reason I do that is because the filled orders are what move the market, right? A passive order is out there. It's an advertisement, but a filled order moves the market. So I'm going to pay more attention to who is actually getting their orders filled and not who has them sitting out there.
Skin in the game,
Get in the
coach.
game.
Another
Go ahead.
thing that I would add to that is see what VWAP does, what it does to VWAP, because that's the skin in the game, as coach just said. It's an an active order, it's a position, it's volume. So it's a great question. I would add to the start. See what it does to VWAP. That might be your answer.
It's a great point. If VWAP turns on the volume, then that's who's in control. I told you guys that most of my trades, most of the profits on the day in this account came from the Dow. And I do just want to switch over to the Dow real quick, because uh, presenting a little bit of a different start to the morning. I'm just going to go from the New York session because I did not personally look at the Dow overnight. Um, but I have a screen where I just have all four equity markets up. I know that I'm looking for this opening range breakout trade to present itself in a market. I don't care which one does it. I just want to trade this setup. And the Dow presented to me one of the better opportunities to take this trade, where we established the opening range. There was a ton of selling in the morning on the Dow in this first 3 minute candle. All of that selling getting rejected, to me was, and it was a lot more selling in the Dow than it was in the. Uh, you can see it right at this full
Huh.
session view up as well. A lot more selling in the Dow than there was in the S&Ps and the Nasdaq. So what that tells me is that with that much volume trading in the Dow, there's likelihood of continuation of this move in this market, right? For whatever reason, this market is trading a ton of volume on the open. So I want to pay attention here because for whatever reason, all the other traders are paying attention here as well. So we can see ton of selling gets rejected right at VWAP. It holds it, and this was my first trade of the day, buying the Dow on this, and then again a really nice trend up. Looked like it was the leader early on. We did get a pullback right to VWAP. This is full session VWAP, and then we have the New York session VWAP here, which is this purple one. Pull back into that VWAP pinch, if you will. It holds, the full session holds, and then just a really nice opportunity to potentially get in a trade again where we didn't have any follow through on this selling. Then the last trade I took was a short somewhere up here that eventually I think I got stopped out for scratch on a runner. But sometimes when the NASDAQ ES are chopping around or not moving, there are trends in the Dow and the Russell. And I think today was a great opportunity, a great example of that. Um,
There's a lot of talk about that and the Russell. I
yeah.
didn't I didn't see the Russell, and
The
that's one
Russell,
we
very similar.
well, yeah.
Very similar. They all eventually did do exactly the same thing. It's just the Russell and the Dow to me presented opportunities a little bit earlier and a little cleaner than the Nasdaq and the ES. The Nasdaq and the ES took about 45 minutes to an hour to even start leaving the range, where these markets did it pretty early. We can see test of the opening range high, nice bounce from there, and that opening range held the entire session once we closed outside of it. So again, opportunity in other places. Just have to look, and I think most importantly, instead of just jumping around and scanning to markets, finding a setup that makes sense for your trading. Uh, hey, coach, if I had to say you have a playbook setup, it's the market. Let's say we're above the 200 moving average. I'm calling this the Coach Paul trade. The market's above the
Hmm.
200 moving average. It sells off into the 200 moving average, doesn't break it. I'm looking to buy from there, right? Regardless of the market, I can apply that same setup to lean hogs, to the Mexican peso, to whatever it is. If the market's testing that 200 moving average to a high percentage, I can expect it to do a certain thing. Now, I still have to manage my risk and do whatever it is, but we've seen it happen so many places that that's what I'm looking for, right? I don't have an opinion about the market. Give me a technical setup that I know I can trade.
Yeah, something that is repeatable.
Yep.
That is a and it's that's why I love futures. I grew up in futures, so I don't know really. I can't comment. I haven't traded stocks consistently, although I have. But the one thing with futures, it gives you a diversification of asset classes, and there's that's what I love about futures. Whatever it could, someone wants to go through copper. Well, if we have time, we'll do the copper. It's that easy. It's in different asset classes, different, but the markets and volume are non-random when you get on the side of volume. What can I say?
Right. Uh,
What is this?
this is gold. This is gold. Does anyone remember what the news was 7:30 yesterday? 7:30 a.m. Central Time yesterday. Does anyone remember what the news was? I don't remember what release came out, but someone in the chat definitely knows. If you guys can help. So Bob just says, "What is that yellow line?" I'm gonna tell you as soon as I know what the news was from yesterday, whatever it was. Uh, nothing gold just dumped. Oh, it was the U.S. trade balance number. Thank you, Courtney. U.S. trade balance number yesterday. What this yellow line is, Bob, is VWAP anchored to that news event, right? We actually did say this yesterday. Gold was one of the only markets that responded with any type of real volume that was significant to that US trade balance number. This yellow line is VWAP anchored to that. And here
Oh my
is this blue box is the holy shit. Oh, sorry. Excuse my language, but that's pretty crazy. Uh,
God.
the blue box is the 30-minute Globex opening range.
Did it respect that?
It
Is
looks
there
like it.
selling?
Yeah, they are selling under that for some reason. So they sold it after that yesterday, and this VWAP started to flatten out and act as a resistance. We can see where the highs were set on gold, and that was pretty much the high for the session. Coach, we made the high on the opening tick, looked above it a couple of times with no kind of conviction from buyers, and then by the time we get into the New York session, uh, we're rejecting that range, right? Here is the open for gold in the New York session. And someone asked why on that candle. On that candle specifically, because that was news, right? So you can anchor. VWAP, and just the way I look at it, Brian Shannon looks at it the same way. It's an event-based anchor. From the time that event happened, what is the market's response, right? And that's how you're kind of looking at it. So US trade balance caused a volume spike in gold. From the time that event happened, sellers were in control. And when we get back up to VWAP, they're still in control. If we start to get some candle closes above this VWAP, then buyers have started taking control, but we can see
So,
sellers rejecting it.
and I would even I would describe it as the sellers stopped, because this VWAP is what the sellers. There's a program, and we've been discussing this earlier in the week and last week, because the gold market changed it, its flavor. Sort of the buying the dip was not working like it was, and we discussed that. But that candle was a big candle with big volume. So whatever the event was, and maybe it didn't, that it triggered volume, big volume, that the market it would creates an imbalance, and that imbalance needs to be traded out of. So markets go from imbalance to balance back to imbalance. And that situation, this to a T. Look at that. I mean, every time it comes up there, someone's going. There's to me, it's almost like an algorithm. Get rid of some more. Um, I just get the feeling it's central bank driven. Um, it's my feeling, because it's consistent. How long? How many days has this gone on now?
This is probably the third day that we're seeing this kind of selling in gold,
Yeah,
third day in a row. Yeah, going back, actually even longer than that. So let's see, when we started to close under the 200 moving average. That's back on October 7th. Yeah, so 3 days.
3 days, and every time it pops up, here, give them some more. you know, and it seems. And then what are we getting out of that? They're not finding good buyers.
Yep.
So who's ever taking the other side of that has got to go find other buyers, right? Like a hot potato. So they got but now they have volume. And now they got to go find someone else to take it. And they turn around, hey, I got 50 to sell. And the guy, from my days as a floor broker, I got 50 to sell. And the guy you're usually relying on to take some volume from him goes, I'll buy one. It's
So,
like,
well, what am I supposed to
what
do
am I
with
going to
that?
do with? Yeah. So now you're not finessing. You're going to create direction, because now you're stuck with the imbalance. This is simple in simple terms, and that hasn't to me that hasn't finished trading out yet. It's this is very. Can we look at a daily in the gold real quick? Well, okay, we're under the
Changing a
20.
little bit there, right? That's the first close under the 20 moving average since September 6th. And we could see the September 6th close looked, actually, no, yesterday closed under it as well, but this is a pretty significant close. Uh,
Yeah, it's not finding buying, and it every day. So tomorrow's a big day in gold. I think that CPI inflation number,
right? Funny how that
but you
always
know what
lines up.
else is happening? Interest rates are climbing. So there's, I mean, today it just was a slow drip, even though the FOMC meetings didn't create any volatility in the interest rate or the treasuries. It just like gravity's pulling it down. It seems like gold is taking notice. Remember, it costs money to hold gold, and not just the storage cost. Unless you want, if you have $1 million worth of gold, are you going to put it in your safe underneath the porch? I don't. You have to find a facility. There's that cost, and you're foregoing interest and interest rates. Assumed we're going to go lower, and that's that theory thesis is being challenged.
Absolutely. This looks like, so obviously a higher time frame. If we zoom out, gold is still in an uptrend, but we talked about this all last week. Uh, Getting extended from this 200 moving average without a test of it for a little while, it's starting to get heavy, right? What better place to make a little bit of a reversal? Think about it. If you were long from 2,500, we hit 2,700, you're up 200 points in gold, you're probably taking some profits. And we need to see new buyers come in to continue all time highs, right? The market can't just go up if no one wants to buy it. And the, longer time frame uh, market participants are trying to buy with good prices, right? So they can, you know, see profits on these trades, right? I don't want to, if I'm buying 5,000 contracts of gold, I don't want to do it on the high tick of the market, right? I want a little bit of a pullback before we get some continuation. I'm probably taking some profits here, looking for a potential pullback, maybe to this 50 moving average on the daily coach, which right now is at 25.68. I'm looking at this range here, this candle from September 12th. The high of the candle 25.90, 50% of it 25.63. Depending on how we, if we continue to sell off here, uh, I'm looking at this, 50 moving average potentially being somewhere near the highs of this range at 25.90 and a test of that before continuation up. This candle, I feel, is going to be pretty important in the next couple of days.
Yeah. Um, very. This is tomorrow's a big day. I'm gonna-
Yeah.
There's a lot resting on CPI. Um, and why is that? Because that inflation talk is creating a lot of pressure. Now, overall, inflation has been subdued. Um, Rising interest rates have done their thing. Supply and demand, simple supply and demand. You know, the, there's an old saying in economics: the best cure for high prices are higher prices, because there'll be production. The higher that price goes, the more incentive it is to produce. The more their production, the more volume volume comes into the market, the better the markets work. I mean, it's just basic econ 101. Um, so right now, I don't. Gold looks like it wants to go to the 50-day moving average, but hey, that could change tomorrow.
What was here, but anything can and will
Yeah.
happen in these markets. The lows of gold for the day were the lows pretty much of yesterday. We see did give us a nice bounce. So if you were trading this market, nice range bound day, right? Kind of bouncing between the lows of yesterday and this 30-minute opening range. So nice there. We did have someone ask about copper. So let's go to copper before we go to crude oil. Uh, and I don't trade copper often, but under the 200 moving average from a technical perspective, coach, on the 30-minute, trending lower, and looks like it's
Hmm.
following gold.
Oh, Dr. Copper is feeling a little pressure. Um, very looks like liquidation. When did that break? When did it get under the 200?
This was
What date?
October 7th, around the same time as gold.
So where's October 1st on that chart?
October 1st is right here.
All right. It looks to me, I mean, that's the beginning of the fourth quarter, right? Copper production is, and, they call it Dr. Copper because when copper suffers, the economy's suffering. Um, Without going too deep into it, you got the nickname Dr. Copper. Um, but once we got through this month, when we got through that first day's low, we have not recovered. Um, Boy, that just looks like liquidation of supply. Um, Interesting. That doesn't. Um, well, what does the daily look like? Because we had a big rally on that, didn't we?
We did, yeah. We had this kind of blow off top move, whatever this is, and since then, it's been a sell.
It's almost symmetrical.
Mhm.
It's kind of one that goes right back to where it started from. The 200-day moving average is not was within shot. That's why now I know that's why I quit trading copper. I was never any. It's 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 a tough market, especially day trading.
The thin market
There's
also.
days it's a thin market, yeah. Um, but I didn't know it had broken that hard since the big rally of when was it? June. So it's been drifting lower for good most of this quarter. Hmm.
Was it on copper? If I'm looking at a daily chart, looks like it has potentially some room down to this 200 moving average. The 50 is right there as well. Um, I personally don't trade it too much. I know that it is a decent market to trade. It's a mover. Depending on the account size, I would maybe suggest trading something a little bit more favorable to top step accounts, especially with how thin this market can be. All right, let's go over to crude oil. Crude oil on the daily chart,
Right back into the middle of the range.
middle
Um,
of the range.
after yesterday's dramatic break, um, we're w- right back to 200-day moving average where we've closed under, made another break um, to come back basically unchanged, typical crude style. Um, actually, crude is a great place to trade the edges. it, it,
Sure.
so let's go to the half hour.
Go to the half hour. The 200 daily moving average was at 74.50, and the 50-day moving average was down at 71.65. Going to a 30-minute chart, we have, I'll take the moving, we are under the 200 moving average on the 30. I'll take those off for now, and we'll look at the first 30 minutes of Globex Open.
Time out,
What's the
coach.
what's that
Time
yellow
out.
line? What's up?
Was that the gold chart?
This is
It's almost from the day.
the same thing. It's the same exact chart.
Right? I would put that that I thought I was feeling deja vu all over again.
Right.
It's like
It's the same
that,
exact chart.
wow, black gold.
Yeah. Um,
Wow.
one thing we don't talk about too often, this yellow line here, this is anchored, and I didn't do this intentionally, right? This is just so we look at the Globex, you know, when the market opens, we look at that anchored view up, right? And this is anchored from yesterday's open. Right now, I could have anchored this to a news event like we did in gold, right, where it wasn't at this 30-minute open, it was at a high volume event. But sometimes leaving these things on your charts can just let you know on a higher time frame what the market is doing. Uh, I left this on there unintentionally, but if I was trading crude and I'm looking at this, I'm like, oh wait, hold on a second. This is a VWAP from yesterday or from wherever I anchored it for whatever reason I put it on there, and it's still relevant. On a higher time frame, this is still relevant. This is basically 2-day VWAP. Really nice rejection right under it. Uh, okay, and we got this question. I'm going to answer this. The anchored VWAP question. It's on your platform. We have forecasting and measurement tools on the left side. If you have the drawing tools up, it's forecasting and measurement tools on the left side. From there, you are going to scroll down. You click on forecasting and measurement tools, the arrow next to it. You're going to go down to anchored VWAP, and I put a star next to it so I can keep it in my favorites, right? So every time I click on this anchored VWAP button, I will click on a candle and it anchors it from there. All right. I am going to turn that into a YouTube short so we could just send the link to it when we get the question because we do get it a lot and it's fine, right? But it's on your platform in the
because,
drawing tools and go from there.
coach,
Go ahead, coach. Yep.
seems to be a valuable tool.
I mean, I like it.
I wouldn't go to work without it. So it's a great
Yeah,
question,
I use it
and
every
I can
day,
see why people ask.
100%, 100%. And I can't. It's a great question. It's a great question. I'll leave it at that. Um, not too
We
much
should
else to
just
say
have
here.
that in an introduction, how to use it.
Right there we go. Here is the. We did have inventories out today in crude oil. We did have a really nice sell off again. Asian session. If you're looking to trade crude in the Asian session, maybe trading a range bound market where it's chopping around and not doing too much. Yesterday, it did have a really nice sell off, but a lot of the days I feel like we're looking at this and the move happens during the London session into New York, and that's kind of what happened today. Made you wait a little bit during London, but eventually broke this 30-minute opening range. VWAP left the range as well, started to act as a resistance and sell off into that inventories number. I did take a trade in micro crude trying to get long around this 72 area and got stopped out before the eventual rally. I wasn't paying attention and didn't realize that inventories were out today. So this is that inventories candle. If I would have waited, I probably could have been in the trade at the same level that I got in and caught that rally. But uh, on this sell off here, I did get stopped out of that trade. But then let's anchor a VWAP to the newsprint, right? Because if I'm trading crude, more often than not, if I didn't catch this sell off overnight and I know inventories are out, I'm probably not going to take a trade until inventories happens. So now if we frame out that inventories candle, anchor a VWAP there, we could trade it the same way that we would a 30-minute breakout or a 3-minute breakout. Once volume leaves that range, price closes outside of it, giving us an opportunity to buy, and we can see the highs of that news candle acting as a support once volume is out of that range. Um, any questions on that, Coach?
I have one comment on that. I would look at that. And when we looked originally, we looked at the half hour, and we saw that dramatic VWAP. But here, where do I cover in this? Because now we're getting far and farther away from the volume. So we know a report's coming. We either just cover blindly or, use a on these lows on the open, attach a VWAP to there, where volume events are bound to happen, opens and closes. So I consider that one you just marked that off that as a great cover of a short where I don't want to be short anymore. And as the more you do this, the more a price is not so im- I won't say important, but it's not in your mind. It's price volume is so much more important. It's why people keep asking about it.
With you, Coach. And I find a lot of the times that having to make sure that we do mention prices while we're even doing this, because I don't know. When I traded the Dow today, I had no idea what price it was trading. I'm gonna be honest with you, and it's a little different because wherever you get in, right, your position starts from there. Um, where it's not like I'm trading a stock and I need to know, the exact dollar amount that it's trading. My risk starts from where I put the position on. So if I can identify volume, that's what my trade is based on. I actually don't know what prices I traded today in the Dow. Um, I just traded the technical setup that it was presenting to me.
I love to hear that because I don't either. Um, I and it's not to say price is not important. That's obviously it is, but price volume is a much greater detail. It gives you so much more information. Um, and when they match up, there's an
Then
opportunity.
you got something good. Uh, it is 5:11. We do have a couple more questions. I think we actually got to most of them in the chat, but we got one from Courtney. I'm going to throw this one to you, Coach. Do you think it's odd that the ES made all-time highs with the dollar up 1% and the 10-year down?
Yeah, it is odd. Absolutely, I was watching it all day. Why? I don't know. And I'm not being a smartass here because the market is doing what it's going to do, and it is odd. It's out of character, which makes it to me a little more important. Like I said, the treasuries, especially the lower end, is not react. It's just leaking lower, which makes the dollar stronger, right? And makes equities more attractive worldwide. Stronger dollar. One thing we didn't, and it's on a scouting report, downside of yen. Yen is back to its old self, and that's when we've talked, and we'll do another section on this. The 10-year and the yen are uh, highly correlated.
See if we can let's see if we can bring
If
it
I
up real quick. So I know the yen has been on your scouting report. So let's see if we can do this. I'm gonna bring up the yen on this side and the 10-year. Oh, that's already the yen. 10-year on the take off the chart links.
uh,
All right, there we go. They look
oh
like the
wait,
same chart.
I thought you changed it. All right, that's how. So yeah, it's odd, Courtney, and it's a good eye. What that means, I'm just don't own it. I'm short tenure, be short the yen, and be long equities, and that is it's not it's one off. It seems to me there's some type of, and maybe a lot of this is coming out of China with their big economic stimulus. We see it with gold. We see it with the yen. It seems like the unwinding of some larger um, players. But it is odd. In my old days as an economist, I would have fought this tooth and nail. Um, yeah, I got enough bruises. I don't need to be fighting anything.
Right. Uh, yeah, definitely don't want to fight this move. We got about a minute left. We can go over. That's okay. We don't have anyone coming after. Coach, I'm just gonna scan through my notes real quick just to make sure I don't miss anything. Anything you got before we go?
Looking to stay short at the end, or to play the short side of the yen in the notes. That
Nice.
was perfect ending. Thanks for bringing that up, Courtney. I wanted to put that. And we've talked a little bit about it, and just it's consistent. We have some good opportunity there.
I got a question here from Michael Stanton. He's, asking about the VWAP on the trading view charts or TopStep X charts, which are trading view charts. When you zoom in and out, it does sometimes change the value, especially if you're on shorter time frame charts. So what I like to do is just zoom out as far as possible, where, if I'm on a minute chart, personally, I don't need to look at it like this close. So I just zoom out so I can get the full scope of the information. Um, but yeah, it does change it based on the visible range. His Royal, thank you for joining. Thank you for always being here. Thank you all for always being here. Coach Paul and I personally, I love to do this segment. Again, it takes me back to basketball coaching days and just, hey, let's slow everything down and talk about what happened so we can prepare for what is to come. And hopefully, this segment is exactly that for you. Anything that we talk about, of course, is for educational purposes. But if you are trying any of the ideas that we talk about, any of the markets that we mention, Coach Paul with his scouting report on the yen, if it's not a market that you've traded before or not a style of trading, give yourself the time and have patience with yourself to learn first before you think about making money from it, right? If this is your first time hearing about the yen, your first time hearing about anchoring VWAP and using it for your trades, don't have the expectation of making money from that thing tomorrow, right? It's just not realistic. It's not realistic for me to want to trade anchored VWAP and make money every day because that's just not how the market works, unfortunately. So, uh, whatever strategy you use, learn it and perfect it. enough to the point that you know where it isn't going to work, and then go from there. Uh, we have, and then did a terrible job of plugging this one. I was trying to throw myself the self alley off the backboard, coach, but I dropped it. But if you want to
Yeah,
trade,
that doesn't work for me either.
nah, works for Kobe, some of those guys, 6'6" athletic guys, but not me. If you do want to trade on Topstep TV, fill out that link that I just put in the chat. That is for anyone that has a Topstep account and wants to trade on Topstep TV with the team, whether you're in an XFA practice account, combine, or a live account. And then that second link, or I guess the third link now, because I posted the first one twice, is for anyone that wants to pass with the pros. If you're close to passing your combine, want to do it on Topstep TV like Stanley did the other day, fill out that second link. Dr. Brett Steenbarger back on Topstep TV October 15th at 11 a.m. Central Time. Do not miss that. And if you do, it'll be flipped out, I'm sure, as its own segment because each one of those segments with Dr. Steenbarger is better than the last. Remember that we don't just stop here. Coach Hoop, Coach Ray, Coach Vince are doing classes in Discord all the time. Coach Hoop at 5:30, 4:30 Central Time. Coach Ray at 6 p.m. Central, and Coach Vince at 7 p.m. Central. BA, I don't know if BA is in the chat, but they were in Coach Dakota's slow markets last night and said, "Wow, I just discovered Coach Ray and Coach Vince's classes. Those guys are legendary," or something like that, right? So if you have not seen those, it is a wealth of information. Um, we are hoping to try to get them in front of more eyes, but we can send you over there to Discord. Check those out. I can we get the link for Discord? Let me see if I can get it here. And what you're gonna do, you're gonna check the Discord calendar. Let me see if I can get the link for our Discord. And Nslug is definitely right. Make sure you hit that like button. There's the link to the Top Step Discord. Make sure you join there. The classes 6 p. 5 4:30, 6 p.m. and 7 p.m. Central. Uh, check those out. Different views of the market, but coaches that are there wanting to help traders and doing a damn good job of it. I join them every once in a while when I can now. I'll be honest with you, the first 6 months of me coaching at Topstep, I was in those classes every single day. Um, and learned a
I
lot.
join them when I can too.
Yeah,
And it's one of the great things here at TopStep. There's a lot of experience and knowledge for you to have.
right.
Um,
Free of cost.
and it and it helps. I believe it helps develop your own style. Coach and I've learned a lot from Coach Jay and from all the coaches. It helps me, you know, a carpenter doesn't use just the hammer and a saw. There's other, right? There's tools that, that you can develop that can help your current trading. So open yourself up. There's a lot of great information, a lot of great insight. Um, it's a great team. Glad to be here.
And then most important, when you do learn, especially if you're newer in your trading journey, learn, filter, and then apply, right? Uh, find what resonates with you and then try to apply that to how you can make decisions. Uh, and then outside of that, we got Coach Dakota, of course, with Slow Markets, 7:30 Central Time. I will be on with him tonight, and Deanna for the London session at 3:30 a.m. Central Time. Of course, Nick Fortick on Sunday reopen. I want to thank everybody for joining again today. If you haven't done so already, hit that like button on the way out. Tell your friends and family to subscribe. Coach, another great segment. Thank you as always.
Thank you. And
We will
everybody, good luck tomorrow in front of CPI.
don't trade the news. Trade the after effects of the news. Don't blow your accounts when you don't have to. There will be ton of opportunity outside of that 1 minute candle. Thank you, everyone. We will talk to you all tomorrow. Have a great night. And if you're in Florida, stay safe. Bye.
Good night.